This video focuses on key characteristics of effective peer feedback activities. Peer feedback opportunities need to be embedded within the program design of assessment, and assessment design needs to be authentic. Firstly, induction needs to acknowledge individual differences between students. Not all students are the same, and there need to be different approaches taken for students with different learning strategies. Secondly, time is needed to explore student and educator beliefs and perceptions on the value of feedback in order to fully exploit the peer feedback opportunities. And finally, awareness is needed of students' previous experiences of peer feedback in order to better understand the limitations that they might perceive and the potential benefits that they might perceive as well. Next, we need to emphasize the importance of peer feedback and peer assessment to assessment itself, including feedback design. Key considerations here are that firstly, the theoretical framework underpinning the peer feedback design needs to be shared with students. And secondly, that peer feedback needs to be perceived as an integral and iterative element of the curriculum, not just something that's used once, but something that's used repeatedly, and the students are expected to learn and reflect on that process as they do it again and again. Clear direction needs to be given in relation to peer feedback requirements, and the rationale underpinning why peer feedback is being used needs to be transparent and explained well to the learners so that they understand and engage with it as an activity. Examples of good practice need to be shared with the students in order for the students to understand what sort of things are expected of them. Students need training in elements of effective feedback practice in the context of the requirements of the specific assessment. Students need to be given opportunities to develop and critically reflect on both their giving and receiving of feedback in order to develop those skills. And then peer feedback opportunities need to be authentic and timed well so that the assessment enables peer feedback opportunities. There also needs to be considerable clarity regarding the roles and responsibilities of individuals involved in this process, both peers and educators, and the group as a whole. For example, the nature of choice, affordances and limitations of peer feedback requires a discussion. For example, the degree of student involvement in assessment design, the degree of assessment choice, ways of working with peers, etc. The roles and responsibilities of students within the feedback process needs to be negotiated with those students and needs to be made explicit, and the reasons for that need to be made explicit. Exploration of and clear direction to support networks also needs consideration, and the relevance of peer feedback to feed up and professional practice also needs to be made clear to the learners as a whole. All of these considerations make for effective peer feedback. Taking this further, Panadero, Johnson and Strebos in 2016 adopted elements of Topping's 2003 work in describing a formative version of peer assessment. The key elements of this were, firstly, clarifying the purpose of peer assessment, its rationale and expectations to the students, involving students in developing and clarifying assessment criteria, matching participants together, individuals and groups, in a way that fosters productive peer assessment, rating with or without comments, and the mode of peer assessment interaction, is it face-to-face, is it online, is it through paper, is a very important element as well. Providing quality peer assessment training, examples and practices, including feedback about the peer assessment, is important. And you can do this by providing rubrics, scripts, checklists and other scaffolding to help that peer assessment activity. Specifying the peer assessment activities and the timescale of those is important to provide that rationale and a broad understanding of the scope of the activities. And finally, monitoring the peer assessment process and coaching students through it is a really important quality assurance approach. So peer assessment and peer feedback are powerful activities for learning, but they do need to be properly thought out and properly structured in order for that learning to be effective and a positive experience.